Greetings to everyone world over, all our brothers and sisters across the globe. Green morning, green afternoon, green evening. What a pleasure to have every day all of you together from the world over, sharing the vision, confluence of the knowledge, wisdom. So much is coming in the reservoir. And as a humble student, we keep picking up something new every day in the chamber. International Chamber for Service Industry extends a very warm welcome to Shri K. Ganeshji. He's the serial entrepreneur, partner, growth story.in, adjunct professor, Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, promoter, Big Basket, and Portia Medical, Bluestone, and Home Lane and Hungerbox and Whirloop and others company. When you'll see gentleman's profile, it's really a pleasure and a treasure to have him this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever the world over, you are in different time zones, different parts. Let's enjoy this beautiful evening where we take on the Indian teachers and the global students and entrepreneurs' perspective with him. Ladies and gentlemen, today is also World Biofuel Day. So let's save every drop of whatsoever we can. We started this special series of 1 week under the dynamic and dedicated leadership of Padma Bhushan, Professor Jagdishan on 8th of August, and this will conclude on 15th of August. And we are having every day lots of treasures and lots of expertise. Yesterday, we had Dr. Preeti Sharaf Mehta, and today, of course, you'll be meeting Ganeshji. Our chamber goes back to 1994 when we took the vision that how to link Indian with the NRIs, with the corporate, and there should be a confluence and there should be a golden triangle. We should work out and let the market research, the policy advocacy, innovative strategies, and a couple of consultancy and training, all that coming in a services sector. We are dedicated to services sector. During pandemic, we all had lots of challenges. Teachers, you are great warriors. You have done a wonderful job besides medical services, what doctors, nurses, paramedical, and they all have done. During the pandemic, it's a privilege. We have done about 1,600 webinars for teachers, empowerment, linking the whole world. And I still recall we used to start early in the morning with Australia and New Zealand, coming to Southeast Asia, going to Middle East, going to Central Asia, going to Europe, going to Canada, going to Africa, going to United States, Latin America, and coming to beautiful Bharat and South Asia. Our chamber is privileged. 1994, we set up India's first finishing school for the service industry in India, basically to help the children from the weaker section and the far-flung areas from different parts of our country. Having served in the uniform, I always realize people, those are near border, and particularly those are in vulnerable and climatic hazards, they have lots of challenges. So particularly our SCs, STs, OBCs, minorities, and border area children, we focused on that, and we have come a long way. More than 52,000 children and 35,000 teachers have gone through the process. During the pandemic, everything has gone digital. Now the brick and mortar finishing school has got converted into inspirational lab, and where basically we are having everything digital way. And one question which comes to the mind all the times, why not we should make education relevant to our day-to-day life? And if there are 19,000 plus colleges in India offering the B.Ed education, and we are taking out almost 18 to 19 lakh children every year after completing their B.Ed, and India we require 3.5 lakh only remaining, why not they should become the part of the global family? And when we are having Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, we would like to, in a very polite way, mention education should be relevant to our day-to-day life, living, our parents, our culture, our heritage, our values, our society, whatsoever we can think of. Learning through nature, because I have been wearing green uniform. So teachers, your gardeners, water management, waste to resource management, climate, the change, which is a concern, and SDGB goals when we talk about. So let's be creative and curious. Honorable Prime Minister of India, great salutations to you. You gave the new education policy in the thick of the pandemic on 29th of July 2020. And thereafter, the union budget, if you see how much emphasis were given by Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharamanji with regard to as far as the education and digital education, digital university. So scenario is, what will education would look like in 2047 when India would be celebrating 100 years, become a future thinker. World population is aging. How India can do hand-holding for the skilled educators and through the skilled educators world over. And of course, Ganesh ji would be talking about entrepreneurship as well. I'm pretty sure people, those are running coaching centers, edtech platform, other areas, there's a lot being done in that. So non-resident Indian for Indian education and skills as part of 75-year celebration. In a very humble way, we conclude this program on 15th of August at 9 p.m. in the evening with Professor Seth. And thereafter from 16th, we are going to have a very special program for the 8 beautiful treasures of India, the northeastern part of India. ICSI will be running 10 days free online capacity building program for the entire Northeast region, all the B.Ed students from 22nd to 31st, free of cost. Anybody who is keen, down below you have got the WhatsApp number, you have got an email ID, write to Dr. Chitra ma'am, and we can take on. Tomorrow, you'll be meeting Dr. Setna, who would be sharing with us, addressing the teacher shortage, the potential role of the Indian teachers as a force in the world. So now, ladies and gentlemen, long awaited moment. Professor Jagdish Sheth mentioned so much about Shri K. Ganeshji, the serial entrepreneur, the partner growthstory.in. And all the time when I was talking to him, he used the word tutor vista. And he told that is something mind blowing. I said, okay. So Ganeshi is a successful serial entrepreneur with 4 successful greenfield ventures and exits. He currently runs growthstory.in, a leading venture builder platform that promotes and incubates new ventures along with great entrepreneurs. Ladies and gentlemen, when you look at the treasure of this gentleman, the cerebrum of this person, the hard work and dedication of this person, his bio and his CV and his curriculum vitae runs so much. This program is going live on the YouTube. Please go through later on yourself. And when you will think about, you would realize what a pleasure and what a treat it is that he is with us today. He has also worked as a CEO with the Wipro, Bharti British Telecom, a British Telecom joint venture in India, and held a senior management position in the HCL Limited as well. There are a couple of platforms where he's deeply associated, directly, indirectly. Please go through his profile and do join him on the LinkedIn, be a partner with him, and let's learn and let's pick up the best from him. Whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. That's what the Napoleon Hill told long time back. Let's come together. Let's prepare Indian educators for the global journey. Now India is ready. Let's take on with the ISRO and our today's projectile, our today's force, our today's energy, and everything we are going to take with Ganeshji on Indian teachers and global students and entrepreneurs' perspective. With these words, ladies and gentlemen, join me in extending a very warm welcome this morning, this afternoon, and this evening. And I could never, ever believe that our patron and under whose patronage this program is coming through, Professor Jagdish and Sheth, sir, you have given a surprise to us, sir. What a pleasure to have you with Ganeshji, I'm taken by a surprise, and it's such a pleasant surprise. And hearty welcome to you as well, all the way from United States. And with your permission, should you wish to say a few words about Ganeshji, or should we start the program with Ganeshji? All your choice, sir. We go ahead accordingly. Your mic is muted, sir. Your mic is muted, sir.
Yeah, please go ahead. Ganesh is exceptional.
No, thank you. Thank you.
Meet and work with him maybe more than 10, 15 years ago, and it's impressive what he has accomplished. The main reason why we wanted to invite people like Ganesh is not just entrepreneurship or very success in the internet-based technologies, but having a purpose, some social impact agenda at the same time. And what he did in his younger days and what he is doing now is so exceptional that I thought we will learn a lot from him about the future of Indian education, India's teachers abroad, and he has a lot of experiences. So, Ganesh, thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Jagdish Seth, for this opportunity to come and address this gathering. And thank you, Major Dr. Gulshansharma, for extremely kind words. I hope I deserve at least part of the praise heaped by Professor Jagdish Seth. And he, of course, we look up to him quite a bit. And my first meeting with Professor Jagdish Seth was at IIM Calcutta when he came as a guest lecturer back in 1984. So we really are talking about 38 years. And I had the pleasure of transcribing his talk and speech for our IIM Calcutta newsletter. So that's how we go. Thank you very much. I thought I'd spend initial part of this talking about my experience and journey and my own thoughts on Indian teachers for global business. Other than the education enterprise we did, the venture before that was really in the what is now known as the BPO or call center space, wherein we used Indian resources for serving global markets. It is not the typical IT software services, but it's the back office and call center space. That company is part of the Sanjeev Goenka group. It's called First Source now. I and my wife had started. So the idea and the thought of using Indian resources for serving global markets. This was back in 2000 when the BPO call center industry started, and we were one of the early pioneers. And before that, of course, 10 years before that or 15 years before that, companies like Wipro, Infosys, HCL had done it in the software sector. So clearly the context of having large educated population, what in the jargon people talk as demographic dividend, from India to serve world markets, be it in software, be it in call center, be it in healthcare or education, is pretty close to my heart and obviously a great opportunity. Let's go back a bit, and I'll first start talking about my Tutor Vista education experience, which is back in 2005. So we're talking about 17 years back when internet was not what it is today. There was no smartphones, there are no apps, and mostly it was dial-up internet and a bit of lease line internet. Broadband did not exist as we talk today. So what we did at that time was we thought personal tutoring, supplemental education in the US is very expensive. It was anything between $40 to $60 per hour for personal one-on-one tutoring for US students. At $40 to $60 per hour, it's clearly unaffordable unless you're really desperate. It's almost like pulling your tooth or a root canal treatment. So if the student is really failing, then $40 to $60 per hour becomes almost a necessity. And then also it's only a privilege of the really rich people. How many hours can you get? And when we looked at that, we realized one great anomaly. Here is a student who is struggling and failing and needs coaching. And the parent, because they are paying $40 to $60 per hour, are getting a tutor and telling the student, learn very fast. Try to catch up. Try to learn in 2 hours, 3 hours, because we are spending $40 to $60 per hour. Now, that's very unfair. Firstly, if the student could learn in that 2, 3 hours, they may not have needed that tutoring. So this was the scenario there. Then we said, how do I do that, solve this from India? One obvious opportunity was what we call as labor arbitrage, something that can be done at X price in US, I do at half the price in India. Typically, IT services company have done that very well. BPO call center also is based on that we have a cost arbitrage between India and the developed world like US, and therefore we can do it half the price if we can bring the work to India. So that was the most obvious option. But that is not really the solution, because if you look at it, $40 to $60 per hour is very expensive. Half the price can be $20 to $30 per hour. Even at $20 to $30 per hour, we are not solving the problem. Okay, yes, some more people can afford it. Maybe instead of 3 hours, they would like to take 6 hours of tutoring. But 6 hours is not going to cut it. So we said, how do we change and approach this need for supplemental education, need for education for the US market, and use Indian teachers to be able to solve that? That is when we came up with this idea of Tutor Vista. What is the basic idea? We said we are not going to charge you half the price. We are going to charge you $100 per month. So the concept was, the student in US pays $100 per month, and they get unlimited, free, 24/7, no questions asked, one-on-one personalized tutoring. Now just imagine, the family pays $100 a month. So the kid Johnny gets access to personal tutor 24/7, any number of hours for the entire month, no questions asked, all subject. Now, that became extremely powerful. We got featured in New York Times, we got featured in all the things, and the company grew, and finally it was acquired by Pearson, which is world's largest educational conglomerate. It was then that. The point I'm making is, the solution lies not just in using Indian teachers for global market. The solution lies in coming up with a differentiated or innovative or disruptive, whatever jargon that you use, to be able to change the status quo. Okay, right? At $100 per month unlimited, it became like one more subscription for the family. The family gets Netflix subscription or a broadband subscription, internet subscription. It also gets a pipe like this. That really changed the game, because we were not the first to do this global tutoring through internet from India. We are not the first, but we're the first one to change the model. So that succeeded. And so in Tutor Vista, at the peak, we employed over 6,000 teachers. We were the largest employer of teachers in India for any company, who used to get up in the morning at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. India time, and then teach kids on the internet from all the cities in India, tier 2, tier 3 cities in India. And how was this possible? It is possible because in India, you could get PhD and masters, people who have done very high qualification. Most of them, 95%, were women who are very happy to teach. It's a noble profession. Everybody likes to teach. It's a very respected profession. But the moment you are able to do it from the comfort of their home, they don't have to travel. They don't mind getting up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and teaching, provided you can provide that particular comfort that they can do it from home. They would not be able to go outside and take the call. So we combined the ability to work from home, availability of a hugely highly qualified teachers who could give personal tuition to this. Can you imagine a PhD or a master's in statistics teaching a 9th standard, 10th grade student in the US? And what does it cost? $100 per month, unlimited. So that, I think, is the great opportunity. That's what we did for the US market. What we also did for the Indian market, two very interesting things. One, we said in India also, it's a challenge in most of the places to get the best teachers. You have few good teachers, but because the teaching profession doesn't pay enough, it doesn't attract the best of the people in school teaching. So they end up with not the best quality teachers. Can we connect the last student to the best teacher by using technology? So in India, we had a thriving business that was, jargon is called ICT, using technology in education, where we said, can we standardize or make all the tools at that time, including multimedia tools, animation, um, through software, to teach all the concepts. All of you must be familiar with the Khan Academy videos, something of that kind, but catering to the curriculum. We use that to be able to, we gave it to school so that an average teacher can get 80% of the same effectiveness as the best teacher, because they are standardizing. Again, today the technology has moved to a far different place to be able to leverage it. So that is what we did. Now let me talk about some of the challenges that we faced when we tried to use Indian teachers for the US. This one obviously was state to state, the curriculum varies in the US. It's very tough. They do have a standardized curriculum, but people follow each one. Nuances are different. And obviously, when we are talking about teaching, we want to conform to that state curriculum, because we want to for the student to be able to do that. Now, in India also the same thing applies, but we are now talking about additional complexity of having an Indian teacher learn the US curriculum. That was a big challenge. Second was, obviously all of us know that the context is very different. Okay, right? In India, you talk about cow and the mango and this. There you are talking about a student, you need to talk about donuts. So you need to talk about slightly different kind of context. So even with the examples they give, okay, right? You need to sensitize them to slightly different examples. So a lot of training was required on the culture and the context. Okay, right? Not very difficult, not rocket science, but you have to educate, you have to do that. Otherwise, it's slightly jarring. For the example, it doesn't matter whether there are two cows or two mangoes or two donuts. It doesn't matter. Okay, right? The example is the same. The learning is the same. But for a student who is trying to learn, it can be slightly jarring. So we needed to do that. Obviously, we had cultural challenges from the teacher's side. We had PhD, masters, 50-year-old, 60-year-old teachers. They used to be called by the name by the student. Okay, right? Now that is sacrilege in India. If you see that, I mean, you call, I mean, even Dr. Gulshan can't be Ganesh ji. Okay, right? And there's no G, we're teacher. And we had actually a visceral reaction by the teachers who wanted respect, who are always used to be respected, be called by the name. So many of this we had to go through and correct and change and sensitize both sides. I mean, sensitize the teacher to be able to do that, saying that's perfectly fine. Couple of instances I'll share with you before we move on to what we think about this. Intuitive Vista, like I mentioned, we got covered by world media and all of those. The best was the New York Times carried a front page article about how US students are getting taught from India. And as a part of that, they wanted to have a interview with a student. Student, of course, was 9-year-old, so they could not interview the student without the parent being present. So the New York journalist actually had the 9-year-old student, her mother, myself, and a teacher from one of the tier 2 towns in India. All the four of us in a conference call for the story. Okay, right? And obviously, like the way journalists like to do, they are like to ask provocative questions. And if they get provocative answers, that makes a better headline than a non-provocative or a nice goody answer. So he said, so he asked the student, saying that, listen, you are talking about Indian teacher. I mean, you're talking about this teacher. Her name was Radha. Your teacher, Radha ma'am. And how do you understand? Isn't accent a problem? Okay, right? And the journalist saying, even I have difficulty in understanding Ganesh, but how do you, as a 9-year-old, are able to understand that particular teacher? Now, there is a pin drop silence, okay, right? Because I was expecting saying that it's tough to understand and something negative will come. Then the headline in New York Times will be Indian teachers the accent cannot be understood by so US student face trouble with Indian teacher. So before the child could reply, the mother said, there is no problem with the accent. Okay. Claire has learned the Indian accent very well.
Wow.
So the thing was, in addition to teaching math, we have taught them Indian accent, right? That was and that was a mention. That was a mention that was a mention that came up. That was one. The other was this was back in 2005, while IT had already started. I mean, the level of the SaaS companies and development of India was not what it is now, 17 years back. So the other question they asked was, tell me, when you chose a tutor for your child, didn't you have any hesitation in choosing an Indian teacher? Two points there. Well, didn't you have challenge about somebody far away from India teaching your kid? What if they don't behave properly? What if they're inappropriate? What if their skills are not enough? Why would you not choose the comfort of a local in your area teacher whom you can go and meet? Physical this one. So don't you have hesitation? And also the skill set. How do you know that they will be able to teach math to your kid? So this other parent, okay, right, said, if I were to, and her answer was very simple. If I want to teach tennis, if I want my kid to be coached in tennis, I will not go for an Indian coach, even if he's the national champion.
Wow.
But for math or science, any day, I would take an Indian tutor over any other nationality. So I think that is a good segue. We have actually come, thanks to the IT industry beginning, thanks to the Indian diaspora that is there in US, including people like Professor Said and other very eminent educationists as well as corporate CEOs and the success. India's perception, not as an elephant and snake charmers and this land of snakes and all of that stuff, but as nerds, if I may use the word, or as educationists, as people who are savvy, especially in science, math, quantitative in computers and IT skills, is very, very well established and very well respected. So that is really the opportunity for us to be able to say, can I use the large Indian available manpower, our respect for the profession, to be able to take this and take it globally? Okay, right? But there are several challenges here, okay, right? And some of them Professor Seth in his inaugural speech had mentioned, talked about, right? The challenges, firstly, we need to have globally accepted work permit or visa norms. That still is a very big challenge. And we have seen this repeatedly across sectors. In one of our other businesses where we have nurses and nursing attendants, all of you know there is a crying need for elder care in many countries, including country like Japan, which Professor Seth mentioned. It's a very aging population. Singapore, for example, is a small country, but they just don't have enough people to take care of their elders. And people, I'm talking about people are living in their 80s and 90s. They don't have people. They all have government agencies have approached us saying that, can you send nurses and nursing attendants, paramedical staff from India to help solve our crisis? We obviously would be very happy to do that, okay, right? Because we have 4,000 nurses, nursing attendants in Portia. So training another 400 or 1,000 for abroad would be very nice and be a good career progression for them. It would be a good aspirational step for them, all of that. But unfortunately, the work permit visa rules, I'm talking specifically about Singapore, for example, just does not allow them to get people there. So one major challenge is, how do we now get countries to relax, have a special category visa, have this, so that we are able to do that. So that the reason I'm putting that is, this is the entrepreneur's perspective. Once you solve that, I can work backwards and we can solve multiple other things: training, certification of teachers, teaching them about culture, teaching them about the curriculum. All of that can be done by the private sector, by entrepreneurs, for they will be willing to invest money and train. But unless that problem is solved, the private sector or the entrepreneur, or for that matter, even effectively government, will not be able to create an ecosystem to be able to train them. That is that is that is single biggest challenge that exists. Obviously, the opportunity is huge, not just for a qualified teacher, but also for teaching assistant, for people who are helping with the support staff, just like paramedical or paralegal staff that we talk about, is huge. And we did manage to do a bit of that in Tutor Vista back in the days, where there was still a teacher on record in the US, but their effectiveness and their ability was fully and completely, pretty much like teaching assistant, what research fellows do for the professors to be able to do that. And that can be done. And today with the technology, many of the support roles can be done, even done remotely. So that is a major opportunity. The third thing is there internship program that we promote with the government so that they are able to take people, maybe like on a 1-year temporary visa, 2-year temporary visa, where if that is possible, we can train people in India, the number of B.Ed people through various agencies. And I think this program is talked about cooperation between NGOs and private sector and the government. All of them can come together, create, say, for example, as a start, 100 force of 100 teachers who are trained, certified. But if you are able to place 100 teachers, even as internship on a 1-year temporary visa, it can actually benefit a lot of this. This is something which is eminently possible. Obviously, from our point of view, from Indian teacher point of view, there is a challenge of finding good teachers in India, not because they're not passing, it's just the salaries are so low, as all of you know, in school teacher salaries. You just can't afford to run a family. Just can't afford to run a family. Okay, right? The good news is, because of the government schooling system, and there is enough research that has shown, the quality of the teachers in government schools or in non-government schools is not very significantly different. The motivation is different, but the quality is not different. So we do have a large supply. How to make this job aspirational? One of the things IT it happened, and BPO it happened, is because people could see that if I go through the training, if I go through the certification, if I follow that path, I will be extremely well off because of the increments and the salaries I get, the opportunities I get. So there was no need to convince people to do engineering and get into a coding job. It was automatic. There's nothing like that. What we need to do is to kickstart the flywheel. Can I get through all of this? Can I get 100 people placed? We'll make great examples of it and go and tout it around the world and get the flywheel and momentum going. That needs to be there. Today, the challenge is, if you tell somebody that do B.Ed, do teaching, then what? They do it, either they're extremely passionate or it is actually the second income of the family, because you can't run a family on that. Somewhere we need to change that particular equation. Okay, right? Obviously, we have seen in the healthcare sector, especially in the qualified nurse sector, because the qualified nurses are in high demand, they end up going to Gulf, or they end up going to other places on their own, on an individual work permit. In India, it's finding it difficult to get it. We may run into the same problem here with teachers if we don't expand the supply. But again, as an entrepreneur, I always feel supply side is something which I can find solutions to. Okay, right? The market is something which I can't control. But we need to see how to create a large cadre of people. Can I create a cadre of teachers? Because the B.Ed curriculum we have still is archaic. We need to revamp the B.Ed curriculum. We need to make it international. All of that, I think the government is willing to listen. There is National Skills Council is there, very much focused on what skills we need to do. So if a body like this comes up and tells them, they will be fully willing to listen and adopt. But we need to somewhere start a flywheel by saying 100 teachers can actually take it and put that. The opportunity for training can be taken up by the private sector once they see a business model in this, right? But large scale supply of can be done if we are able to kickstart flywheel. Some of the things government can do, obviously, like the way they did Apprenticeship Act. Under Apprenticeship Act, they give stipends. Okay. Can we create under the similar to Apprenticeship Act, as part of that budget, we do have budgets for this. Can we create apprenticeship stipend for people who go through this? One. Two, can there be a small bridge course meant to prepare for the global teachers after we have addressed the demand problem, and create an aspirational cadre of people who want to join there? And I'm not really talking about large numbers. We need flywheel, like any flywheel, just to get the flywheel moving, it will move on its own. So global teacher training certification, all of that can follow. See, one of the things that IT helped companies like NIIT, companies like Apple, because while private sector, while they saw the demand and they knew that the students will pay for it, private sector came and set up. NIIT is now publicly listed company. Okay, right? So there is no dearth of entrepreneurs. There is no dearth of funding available from India to be able to do that. But we need to crack this and not let it go the way the other sectors we have not been able to fully tap the potential for training nurses out of India, so that pass the nursing examination, certification, IT services, IT training got. And there are multiple reasons for it. Some of them specific to healthcare, but just mentioning a couple of it. It was a 1 year to 18 months kind of program the potential aspirant nurses has to go through to be able to placed abroad. Now that 18 months at that thing is a long period of time. Two, it costs money. It costs money to train. It costs money to take the examination and qualify. Now then it comes to the chicken and egg problem. If the company were to do and the candidate loses interest or drops off the program or gets married and decides not to go abroad, then there is no way for the company to recover the money. The student point of view, this is too expensive for them. They come from lower middle class of the strata. It's too expensive for them to afford to pay that particular money. Even with a bit of scholarship and loan, it's a lot of commitment for them. So 18 months potential of going abroad to work and earn good salary, 18 months of investing that time, more importantly, 18 months of investing money, of their own money, either loan or self money, is big challenge. From the private sector companies point of view, they tried to fund all of this, but they really found that out of every two such people who successfully graduate, one of them drops off, only goes. And for two people to graduate, they need to have four people. So economics is, you need to get four people, train four people, two of them will pass, one of them will actually get placed, and the company will earn money from the one that gets placed. Now there is somewhere the chicken and egg problem here. We can't solve for it. So we need to solve for this as a thing. Obviously, focus areas like STEM is very simple and very natural. But I would urge all of us to see, how do we use today's virtual reality, metaverse, other technologies available to really start addressing even the skills, vocational programs for the students worldwide. Because again, while schooling K-12 is important, it's a basic skill, you require it. If you are able to extend beyond that to say that I can make people effective, I can make people earn more, I can make people better skilled, vocational skills, employment oriented, then I think again it's a huge opportunity. The reason I'm very enthusiastic about it is, earlier we had to do it physically. Today, the virtual labs that we talked about is possible. See, almost same effectiveness. There's nothing like touch and feel, but the pandemic has also shown that we can do things virtually. But even without that, the amount of technology that we have to be able to train people is so astounding that what could have been done with a 3 months face-to-face skills training, perhaps today can be done by 3 weeks face-to-face and the balance virtually. Again, a combination of hybrid Indian teachers can be extremely useful. So not just middle school, high school, STEM, but skills based, all of that I think is a great opportunity. And like earlier, today's potential teachers who'd go abroad, their exposure to US, courtesy television series, courtesy OTT channels, courtesy social media, courtesy internet, is far higher. Whether it's one of the things we used to do, we used to force them to watch television series. Okay, right? US dramas, US soap operas, so that they know what the words, slangs, culture that is used. Today, I don't have to say it. Everybody is watching it already. They are already there. Therefore, the world is a smaller, closer place. The ability to appreciate the nuances are far better for this generation of teachers, and will get only better and better as they get exposed to this. So those are some of the thoughts I had in terms of the experience. I would stop here and welcome questions, debate. Professor Seth and Dr. Gulshan Sharma, very happy to have a discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ganeshji. It was such an insight. You gave a wonderful, valuable input. Professor Shetzer, would you like to share some views? Your mic is muted, sir. Your mic is muted. Would you like to share something?
No, thank you so much. Again, Ganesh, this was extraordinary. So practical, so relevant, so useful, and to the point. I mean, I was totally glued. I put the mute on because there's a noise going on in my house, and that's the reason I put the mute button. But otherwise, and you made one point which was emphasized in yesterday's presentation by Professor Preeti Shroff. She really, and I strongly agree with her view, that STEM should be changed to STEAM. Science, technology, engineering, arts, and medicine or mathematics. I think that arts is another area because that makes a holistic education. In many ways, we are learning art from pop art primarily through social media or through television. And again, Ganesh, you made the same point. It is culture-bound, culture experiences. You are so right, whether you talk about two bananas versus something else, it's so practical. This is great. So thank you for coming. I know you're so busy, and I'm so happy that you accepted the invitation. And Dr. Gulshan is a great moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Very kind of you. And in fact, we are so indebted to you to get Ganeshji for the program. And he's sparing his valuable time and to share few comments which have come. I would just like to quickly run through so that, we are at, somewhere on a better position. Nancy Sangma from the northeast part of India, she's writing, Northeast India is blessed with the skills that the global market is looking for. If the training and opportunities are provided from the people like Mr. Ganesh, we can put our best to serve our country towards financial multiplications in India as well as abroad. Another gentleman, Mr. Suresh, he has mentioned, CSR can help to promote entrepreneurship in education. Yeah. If the corporate houses have to spend 2% of their the profits onto some task, why not the government of India should come out with that it should be dedicated for next 3 to 5 years towards educators, education, skills, and empowering the education ecosystem in India. That is another views which somebody has given. And there are quite good numbers of rich corporate houses in India. Some foundations are there, but not doing much as far as education vertical is concerned. That's another view somebody has shared it. So Ganeshji, you can react on these two, and thereafter we proceed further with some more comments.
Yeah, so no, I agree with both. On Northeast, in Tutor Vista, we used to have very good experience with teachers from Northeast. One, naturally, English came much easily to them. I mean, without being parochial or without being divisive regionally, Northeast is one of the places where two things. One is their customer centricity because of the hospitality background, which there are a lot of this one, they are naturally very, very, very adaptable to serving consumers. I'm generalizing a bit here. Two, English was never a challenge because English, they were good in English. So both of it made it very, very nice. And from our point of view, it also, it coincidentally helped that other opportunities were low in Northeast. So we were able to attract best of the talent from Northeast for this. I'm comparing with other places where trading is a lot more prevalent, or it's supposed to be easier, or some other vocation. So absolutely Northeast is very much there, and focus on Northeast to promote it would be very, very useful. That's what. On the second point, on the CSR part of it, yes, absolutely, 2% CSR is mandatory. There is a lot of work being done on education, but on this particular topic, my own view is, I think the main need is to get the demand side or that side done. Otherwise, the ability of even universities, many of the private universities, others, to be able to conduct a program to train this should be relatively easier task. I don't think we need to dig deep into CSR pocket for that purpose. But Professor Jagdish Sethi, you are familiar with the system. Would you think that would be a fair judgment, or
No,
where is the shoe pinching?
you're absolutely right. Issue is not supply chain, as you mentioned. It can be ramped up, it can be scaled up, it even can have the scope for different disciplines. But it's on the demand side, market access, market demand, because it is in a foreign environment at least, and it is very contextual, and we run into cultural, but more importantly, administrative problems. Policies in each county in America is a district, is basically different education, not only just a statewide, let alone a national one. So that's a key one. Then, of course, you have the geopolitical distance. Is India an accepted country in a global environment, which fortunately we are becoming very strategic to the world in the new world order that's taking place. So that part is pretty good. And ultimately, of course, is do you go after the emerging economies or you go after the advanced economies? That makes a difference also. I think it's both, because there is a social agenda that India can become a great global citizen, not through government alone, but the Indian population can become global citizens in terms of their contribution, not just in India or to Indians, but worldwide. I think it's a very important, and we all believe in that. When you believe in that, we all have believed in that, which makes us so passionate about doing these kinds of things. So, but you are right. It's basically a demand side problem.
Thank you,
And
sir.
I think,
Thank you.
and
Please.
CSR, here is my recommendation, Ganesh, and see how you feel. Surprisingly, CSR money in this area may come from mid-sized companies, not from, in fact, just one moment, please. Yeah, no, not from large corporations. Mid-sized corporations may be between 5,000 crore to maybe 10,000 crore kind of a revenue generation, because they are still family-owned, family-run businesses. They are passionate about giving back somehow, and people have not sort of galvanized them in the right way, pretty much about this particular opportunity. So Ganesh, you have more points than I have. Please, Ganesh, you talk. I'm talking.
No, very valid. I think.
There's another, thank you very much, sir. There's another view by someone, they're writing, India is very poorly ranked in the internship programs as compared to even small nations. So how should we encourage the internship, along with the academics, what we have got over here?
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with because somehow we never have internalized or understood the benefits. And I myself, when I say we, I include myself as being responsible. Okay, right? We don't have theoretically, I do know. Okay, right? it is stupid and commercially stupid not to leverage interns for work. Just because if you can pay them top dollar 1 year after 1 year later, why 1 year before while they're doing the course? Why can't you not pay them even 1/10 and utilize? It's not that 1 year they're in 1 year they're going to transform themselves into this. After 1 year, we madly compete for those same resources, which 1 year before we are not even willing to do that stuff. Okay, right? Now, if you ask me why in my startups, I can tell you we are so much busy trying to handle fires and this and that and all of that stuff and taking care of employees who are already employed, that our ability to do justice to our intern, to extract the best out of him or her, to provide her the right kind of thing, not there. Small changes are being made. If you look at the top institutions now, they are taking people as interns with the intention that post their graduation they will convert them into permanent employees or offer them jobs. It's called pre-placement offer, but that still is minuscules, only limited to the top institutions like top engineering colleges or top management institute where they take for summer training or internship. Most often that translates into a job. People like McKinsey, for example, almost 100% of the recruitment in India happens through the internship program only. But I agree with the thing that it is a minuscule example outlier I'm giving. Why, I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, I can tell you in my companies, we are busy with various other things, not doing justice to it, but it's commercially stupid. Professor Seth, what would you?
I totally agree with you. And the best thing to do is that if you're serious about having an internship program within the HR department or within the operating heads, there has to be a dedicated person in charge of those. One of my undergraduate students right now in his senior year, he's doing the internship, and he was talking to me about the way the company does it here. Very interesting. And he says, it was not just the learning and using him for the talent, giving an assignment, but the camaraderie they created among interns from all over the country, or from all the top universities. It's a very large, multi-billion-dollar consumer products company.
It's a great PR also, right? It's a great PR, a great way to get your name around.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a much better dollar spent that way than any other way, which again, we don't think about it. So I think what it requires is that, please, if you are going to have an intern program, making sure that you utilize the person. Person is coming there. Now, it works very well in the medical field when you do externship or when you do residency in some fashion, if you are qualified, because there they use them all the time. I'm going through a physical therapy because of my knee replacement surgery, and there is an intern, a slightly older lady from some other state. She has to spend about 2 or 3 months at this particular physical therapy place, and she does the therapy on my leg, for example. And we talk about, what she's learning, but it's very much like a regular job. So we have to have a commitment before we hire, strategic plan to say, if we hire interns, what are the job descriptions, what kind of jobs managers will give them. And interns are also looking for mentorship. They come to the company with the idea that senior management would be good mentors for them. So you're right, it's a struggle for time on the side of the company, but it's a very valuable program, I must tell you. I agree.
Wonderful. So Sureshji, you must be very happy with Professor Jagdish Sheth's and Ganeshji's views, and your internship moves on multipliers. Now, final question I'll just take on. The vision of the Honorable Prime Minister to make India as a 5 trillion economy, and particularly it becoming a global powerhouse by 24-25. Now, over here, some of the views which are coming from the audience is, why do we all the time emphasize more on manufacturing sector? And we always take a comparison. China is doing very well as far as manufacturing hub is concerned, their manpower, their machinery and everything. And somebody is writing, if India has got such a wonderful skilled manpower, which is to be further skilled and multiply, given the competencies, why not we should focus on a services sector? because education is services, health is services, tourism is services, hospitality is services. I mean, you look at it, there's such a beautiful verticals of services. Pan India, if we work out a strategy focusing on service industry, entrepreneurship, because Gineshji's one of the views today is entrepreneurship. So when I look at that perspective, how do you look at it? Entrepreneurship, services sector, pan India.
No, so no, I think from a naturally for us, the services comes very naturally. Let me put that, because and there are multiple reasons, and I'm not being critical here. Firstly, because in services we are serving people from multiple cities, multiple cultures, multiple races, multiple expectation, multiple food, multiple languages. The adaptability of an Indian worker in services is unmatched.
Yes.
Right? It's completely unmatched. The way you deal with a Punjabi, with a person from Northeast, a person from South India is very different. They come from a completely different mindset. It's actually completely different countries. Food, language, culture, expectation. They may use the same Indian rupee, Indian currency, but it's completely different. So what happens is when you have a teacher, when you have a nursing attendant, when you have somebody, their exposure and experience and the ability to handle a diversity is unmatched. I'll give you an example. In India, you have government hospitals. Doctors in government hospital are far more skilled because they would have seen thousands of patients, thousands of complexity.
Yes.
I mean, compared to that in the private hospital, they would have seen a fraction of that. So you're talking about the exposure that they have had is huge. That is something which is very, very, very valuable. So that brings our ability wherever we go in the world. Okay.
Yes.
The kind of thing, one. Two, because it's a very cost sensitive nation, because price is very important, we know how to do it at the most effective cost. Because that's the only way you can survive in India. You cannot provide a service at a high price and to be able to do it. So price, cost consciousness, the diversity, and the ability to handle challenges and ambiguity is unparalleled. You look at an Indian entrepreneur. Again, I'm not being critical of India or anything, but as an Indian entrepreneur, every time I do a startup, it is a nightmare to handle multiple things, which in any other country I would have taken for granted. We produce our own power. We have our own generator set. To the generator set, we have diesel. We have to store diesel. To store diesel, we need to have backup diesel because diesel gets over. When there is a band, I need to do it. Now, in any other country, I'm talking about call center as an example. In Philippines, the government provides every facility. You don't have to generate your own power. You don't need to have your own generator. You don't need to have your own diesel tank. You need to get your diesel tank certified by the authorities, and you need to have a parallel backup diesel tank. Same thing with water. And in our BPO, when we started our BPO, which is there, because it was at night, we used to cook food. So we had a big canteen. We were in the hotel industry because we are supplying food, because in the night you have to provide food. We had generator capacity because you cannot have a situation where call center is down. So we were generating power. Okay, right? And because we were transporting young men and women, boys and girls in the night, we had our own transport. So we were running a transport agency. We were running a hotel. We were a catering business. We were generating power. Okay. Now, my competitor who used to provide the same service to US client in Philippines did none of this. None of it. In the night, people could go and catch a public transport system and go home. So what I'm trying to say is we have been tempered courtesy all of this to be able to beat anybody in the services sector with our diversity, with our tolerance for ambiguity, with our ability to provide a cost. It will be unparalleled. Okay. Why Manufacturing answer is yes, but my question will be reverse. We have a low-hanging fruit here. We have already proven it in the IT services sector, in the BPO call center sector. Okay, right? Why would you not presume the advantage and go and conquer the world in healthcare, in education, in this? Okay, right? Some of the things I don't know much about manufacturing to talk about, even though I'm a mechanical engineer. My first job was actually in the shop floor in Tata Motors. I still don't know. But I think some of the sectors, because of economies of scale, because of access to natural resources, because of talent that is it, already has been taken far from my countries. So if you're asking me as an entrepreneur, I would rather create global businesses using India advantage for services sector rather than for manufacturing. But somebody, some manufacturing expert should answer that. But Professor Seth would be able to give a perspective of what he has seen services versus manufacturing from India for global markets.
Yeah. No, I personally totally agree. As I mentioned in my presentation, if you need gold, where do you go? Where the gold mine is. And talent, as you said, hardened talent we have in India, because you have to learn to teach with scarcity of everything, with interruptions of everything, and you still are able to do effective job. People are trained in India, and we did very well when we went abroad. Any student from in high school, when they transfer out to America, in American high school, just outscore everybody in math, science, fundamental subjects in many ways, including language, surprisingly. So to me, I think the diversity of experiences, especially in medical field. I go here interestingly in America, to an Indian doctor who actually was trained in India, not a young Indian doctor trained in America. Because the number of patients he or she has seen, the only other place that I can compare is somebody in America who was a US Army doctor, because in Army you have a diversity of population with all kinds of diseases and whatever disorders, which is interesting. So I totally agree with you. But I also think it's not either or. I think manufacturing may be very good for domestic production and consumption. So you don't have to rely on importation as much, for which you have to create a supply chain. So ultimately, by focusing on manufacturing on the domestic Indian market, which is one of the largest markets for everything. I mean, cell phone is number 2. So cell phone guys have to manufacture now in India rather than export into India, for example. And then leveraging the supply chain, how to create all the way to the raw material. We saw America pass yesterday, and I think the President Biden signed a bill yesterday about the semiconductor industry. And I worked for 5-6 major semiconductor companies. They were at that time all thinking of outsourcing. Whether it's National Semiconductor, Motorola, Lucent, which was a subsidiary of Bell Labs, and AT&T, they all had IBM, all had semiconductor businesses, very big one. So government is giving incentives to make sure the supply chain matches properly. And I think we can do manufacturing for domestic purposes, and export for services is very, very easy to export. More importantly, our people, when they travel abroad or when they live abroad, make a good impression generally, despite all the stereotypes. I find myself, when I travel now, any country in Europe, they are smiling. More importantly, when they carry my bag to the room, the bellboy, as we call him, the baggage person, smiles and says, "Are you a software engineer?" So there's a positive image, and if we can do, teacher is the most profession. So you and I are on the same page. I think exactly the same point. It's such a joy to have you, Jay Ganesh, I must tell you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks, Dr. Gulshan. Thanks, Professor.
Thank you very much, Professor Jagdish Seth, sir, for joining us today over here, because under your leadership, we are building up this entire campaign. And thank you very much. My deep gratitudes and thanks to Shri Ganeshji, K. Ganeshji. It was such an awesome, wonderful, what we learned, what we heard, and what we have just picked up from Jagdish Seth, sir. What he mentioned about you, you have given more than that to us. And
Thank
finally, the Filipinos, the kind of BPOs and all that, what you have given. Manisha Chaturvedi, thank you very much. Rishi Mohan, thank you very much. Professor Suresh, thank you very much. You all are the supporters of the services sector. And let me share with all of you, tomorrow evening, we are going to have a wonderful, wonderful views coming up from Dr. Setna, who will be talking about addressing the teacher shortage, the potential role of the Indian teachers as a force in the world. And Friday, Professor, when Vijay Mahajanji comes, along with him, we are going to have the Director General, Services Exports Promotion Council, Government of India under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. And then, of course, 15th Monday, we will be having Professor Jagdish Sheth sir delivering the valedictory address. And that day, I'm going to have a galaxy of 15 top people. Those are coming from world over to be a part of this particular campaign. Thank you, Ganeshji. My deepest gratitudes and thanks. And thank you, Professor Jagdish Sheth sir. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a green morning and it's a green afternoon. It's a green evening. Soldier always thinks green, talk green and serene, because I'm in a city beautiful called Chandigarh. Thank you very much.